Good morning, everybody. This is another edition of the Passball Show brought to you by Pielli.com, as well as St. Aloysius Church and School in Jackson, New Jersey. Today's the 5th day of October 2018. Lots to go over in a world of sports. You got the NHL season, which has just started, so obviously a lot of aspirations and positive thinking when it comes to teams and their fans. Just about everybody's got a chance to win a Stanley Cup in the National Hockey League right now as the season has just started. You got a couple games that played yesterday. Obviously, you got the NFL this weekend. You got the baseball playoffs. And that's pretty much where we are going to start today. And once again, I'm John Pielli, and this is the Passball Show, so glad to be with you. The number, if you're interested in being part of the program, is 732-364-3598. That's 732-364-3598. So, obviously, if you're asking what grinds my gears lately in the world of baseball, it's the overusage of the bullpen. And I think it starts with what happened a couple of years ago. Terry Francona and the Cleveland Indians, they obviously had some success in the postseason, and the reason that they were able to get as far as they did in the postseason was because of the use of the bullpen. Andrew Miller being used for multiple innings. Cody Allen being used for multiple innings. Brian Shaw. So he essentially had three relief pitchers that were covering the game pretty much from the sixth inning on, sometimes being used even earlier. And obviously, it's a copycat league, so over the last couple seasons, a lot of teams have wanted to do something similar, have wanted to do something that is resembling it, to have themselves a hard-throwing left-hander that can go in there and throw 95 to 100 miles an hour and get batters out for 2 innings, have a good setup man and a good closer, and a lot of teams were saying, hey, this is how we're going to do it. Obviously, you got this extreme usage of relief pitching in baseball right now, which is now you got games being started by relief pitchers, and you saw exactly what wasn't going to work or the way not to use your bullpen, the way the Oakland Athletics did against the New York Yankees in the American League wildcard game. I mean, that was going to fail before it even started on so many fronts. And once again, you hear the reaction is, blame Bob Melvin. And that's another silly philosophy or silly thought when it comes to baseball, because you can't blame a manager anymore. It's not the manager's fault that they're given decisions to make or they're having calls made for them. Bob Melvin had nothing to do with the choice to start Liam Hendriks. Of course, him being the loyal citizen, the manager that wants to keep his job, he doesn't want to get fired. He doesn't want to lose his job like Mike Scioscia or Buck Showalter or any other manager in Major League Baseball that's going to resist what the front office and the analytics staff is going to tell them what to do. So Bob Melvin's just doing what he was told. He starts Liam Hendriks, the game gets out of hand. I think as soon as Aaron Judge hits that 2-run home run, I know they kept it close. It was 2-0 into the 5th or 6th inning. And Lucha Reno did a good job, got a big double play in the 2nd inning. So through 4 innings or through 5 innings, you think the Athletics may be able to hold it off. But there's going to come a reliever, and I've said this in baseball 100 times, that you're going to go to a relief pitcher that just ain't going to have it. You can't expect every single relief pitcher, when you're relying on a reliever to get through every single inning. Not everyone's going to have it. You saw it with the Yankees. Zach Britton gave up a 2-run home run. These things are going to happen. So the importance, which I feel baseball has gotten away from, is to have a starter to going to a certain length. And it's unfortunate. You need a starter to go through 5 innings or go to 6 innings. And I just don't think it makes any sense to continue to overuse your relief pitchers. And you've seen what's happened in baseball. You got guys that are coming in there for 2 innings, guys are coming in there for an inning, and as you get through a 5-game series, or you're lucky enough to get to the 7-game series, to get to a league championship series or a World Series, you're going to rely on the same pitchers day in and day out to get key outs. not just key outs, but probably to throw more pitches than they have at any point in a regular season. To face more batters than they have over the course of the regular season. To face the same batters multiple times over the course of a series. Something they haven't done over the course of a season. And, we talk about analytics. We talk about, intelligence, which a lot of these people have. A lot of people that are running numbers and are comparing numbers and analyzing stuff are very smart people. So if they are so smart, then how come they're not factoring in the overuse of relief pitchers? Because I think the team that's going to have the best chance to win the World Series, the team that's going to represent its respective league and win a pennant, is going to be the team that gets some length out of their starters. The team that decides that they're not going to put all their eggs in a basket when it comes to just using their relief pitchers. Now, you saw the Milwaukee Brewers do it yesterday. They had some success. Brandon Woodruff gave 3 solid innings. They turned it over to a bullpen. Burns and Knebel and Hader. I know Jeffress blew the save in the 9th inning, but once again, that backs up the point that I've been making for quite a while now. You can't expect every single one of these relievers to be on their A game. You can't expect every single one of these relievers to be lights out every single time you go to them. And the more relievers, when you're relying on 3 and 4 relievers in each game, there's a better chance that one of them's not going to have their best stuff. And if they don't have their best stuff, you're likely talking about a close game. And it's going to be the difference between winning a game and losing a game. You look at what the Houston Astros did last year. What led them to winning a World Series championship? And the difference between what was a minuscule battle. You looked at the Dodgers and the Astros, and they matched up very well. They played 2 of the greatest World Series games in Games 2 and Games 5 that were ever played. So what was the difference? It was the Dodgers' choice to overuse their bullpen. Brandon Morrow pitching in all 7 games. The relief pitchers coming in and game out. Yes, they were lights out at the beginning, but as time goes by, they're depreciating because they're getting overworked. The advantage is going to the hitters. The advantage is going to the hitters because they get a chance to see the same pitcher time in and time out. And what separated the Houston Astros in the World Series last year was the Astros' willingness to use their starters and get some length out of their starters. Justin Verlander pitched deep into games. They had Game 7 where Lance McCullers and Charlie Morton combined for 9 innings. And the Astros are set up to do that again this year. They have good starters, but they also have McCullers and Morton. If they decide that they're not going to use them as starters, they're going to use them as relievers. Dallas Keuchel might be used as a reliever. They got converted starters that are doing a great job in their bullpen, in Colin McHugh and Brad Peacock. Other teams are just trying to use the same hard-throwing relievers every single game for an inning plus. And it may work for a game. The Yankees should be happy. They got past the Oakland Athletics because the Athletics were more obsessed about using relief pitchers than even the Yankees. The Yankees got to be careful, though. In a 5-game series, I don't think you could overwork your bullpen. But in a 7-game series, you absolutely will. And when that 7-game series comes after a 5-game series where you use your relief pitchers a little bit too much, you're going to set yourself up for disaster. And once again, the team that wins the World Series this year is the team that's going to be able to get some length out of their starters and not overuse their relievers. Now, I don't know if the Milwaukee Brewers are in good shape. They obviously have their 3 top starters. And if you want to talk about Chacin, you want to talk about Chase Anderson, you want to talk about Gio Gonzalez, pretty much set up to pitch games 2, 3, and 4. I would hope that the Milwaukee Brewers would go to a more conventional approach when it comes to using their pitchers. At least throw a starter out there and get them through 4. And maybe the game has changed enough that a 4-inning start or a 5-inning start is considered enough in the postseason now. But you're seeing teams that aren't even trying to do that. I give the Milwaukee Brewers credit. Brandon Woodruff threw 3 hitless innings. He did a great job. You ran the pen right into Burns, right into Knebel, right into Hader. And, I'm not surprised that, Jeffress or anybody from that matter dropped the ball at some point because it's bound to happen. The same thing you could talk about the Oakland Athletics in a wild card game. You could run out Liam Hendricks and get a 1-2-3 inning. You could throw out Lou Trevino and get a 1-2-3 inning. You could go to Sean Kelly and get a 1-2-3 inning. You could go to Fernando Rodney and so on and so on and so forth. But at some point, one of the relievers just aren't going to have it. One of the relievers are going to have a hard time finding a strike zone. One of the relievers are going to hang a pitch. And when that happens, that turns a whole game around. And I understand. You know, you're talking about a situation where a reliever could blow a game at any time. So it doesn't matter necessarily from this perspective how a reliever is used. But I'll tell you, the more dependent you are on somebody coming fresh into a game, you have a chance to get a fresh arm. And I understand that perspective, but every time you go to a different pitcher, there's a chance that he's not going to have it. And if you have a starter that's in there, first of all, comfortable with that role, comfortable with having the opportunity to go out there and start a game, knows what it's like pitching on the road or pitching at home with a crowd, knowing how to attack their first batter, knowing how to deal with a couple runners on base and pitching themselves out of it. Remember, a lot of relievers aren't given the opportunity to pitch themselves out of jams anymore. But as we get set for the postseason, I'm telling you, the team that we're going to crown World Series champion is going to be the team that decides that they're going to push their starters a little further. And I'm not talking about 9 innings. I'm not talking about even 7 innings. But the ones that are going to wait until they feel like their starter has given them enough. Not pulling them early, not using the same relievers every game over a 5-game series and every game over the course of a 7-game series. So moving on, I didn't want to mention something that happened this weekend, and I feel bad because I didn't mention it on the show I did on Tuesday. And I was watching the end of the NASCAR race the other day, and you know, Jimmy Johnson and Martin Truex are battling down to the end, and obviously there's points implications in it when it comes to the final totals of where they finish in the season. And they're going neck and neck, and you can see both of these drivers are trying to do everything they can to get by each other as they hit every curve. They're taking chances. They're getting eerily close. And as they get set to cross that finish line in the final lap, there's contact made. Jimmy Johnson's car spins out, actually spins back on the track, hitting Martin Truex's car, and both drivers are kept from crossing the finish line before anybody else. Those are the two top drivers who are sitting there with the best chance of winning the race, going neck and neck. And to have that happen in the last stretch, so close to the finish line, was something you don't see too often in racing. And you look at Ryan Blaney, who you could tell when he's being interviewed after he won the race, he had no idea what happened. He couldn't believe that they're talking to him about winning a race. It's almost like a scene in the movie Talladega Nights. You know, you got Ricky Bobby and John Jagard, you know, going neck and neck, wrecking their cars to a point where they're completely out of the race, and then they end up having that foot race at the end. They get disqualified, and Cal Naughton Jr. wins. And Cal Naughton Jr. says, you know, listen, I'm going to kill you if you try to take this away from me. And, you know, Ryan Blaney is in that same spot. He ends up winning a race. And my question is, when you talks about racing like this, obviously a win is a win. And if you think about sports, regardless of whether it's an individual sport or a team sport, in the end, or as time goes by, nobody really talks about how you won. Sometimes you talk about how somebody lost. Somebody that's a prohibitive favorite ends up losing in shocking fashion. You know, you look at the Super Bowl a couple years ago with the Atlanta Falcons having, you know, that big lead at halftime and ended up blowing the game, 28-3, and they end up losing. You talk about the Philadelphia Phillies of 1964, or the New York Mets of 2007, the leads they had with just a week left to go in baseball, and they end up blowing the lead and not making the playoffs. But when it comes down to it, on the winning side, nobody talks about the 1964 Cardinals and how lucky they were. They're looked at as the 1964 World Series champions. And Ryan Blaney is going to be considered, as years go by, hey, he won this race. And the more time that's separated from the time that the race happened and the circumstances in which he won, the less it's going to matter how he won. And the fact that he did win. And, you know, I look at Cal Naughton Jr. in Talladega Nights. Hey, he finally won his race. He was bitching all movie about how he was tired of finishing second. He was hoping that Ricky Bobby would let him win just one time, and it just never happened. So he ends up in a spot where there's weird circumstances because of the two top racers that are going neck and neck, ending up crashing into each other. He has a chance to win. He's finally a winner. Ryan Blaney, at least last weekend, was Cal Naughton Jr. If anybody's interested, the number is 732-364-3598. You can be part of the show. This is the Pass Ball Show, brought to you by JohnPielli.com. I do thank Golding Mate number 1, saying, sorry, sir. No, talking to no one. And it's great. I enjoy talking. So it's a matter of, not so much a matter of what your audience is. I hope it's 1 million people. And I hope over the massive and different types of ways that people can get the show. Just a reminder, Facebook Live, Periscope, SoundCloud. The Passball Show is available to be downloaded on iTunes and Google Play. YouTube. So you just search my name. There's many different ways to listen and view the show. But the next thing I wanted to get into is the NFL picks. And you want to talk about one of the things that are the most frustrating. And the thing that probably bothers me the most about the way this season has gone out has been the loss of money that I've had over the series of my picks this year. Now, over 4 weeks, we've got 4 weeks of games. I picked 5 games each week. We're sitting there right now with a 7-12-1 record. And I was actually joking when it came to the show that I did on Tuesday. Maybe it's time to go against what I feel my intuitions are. And maybe that's the best way to do it. Maybe I should pick 5 games and then wager on the opposite. And maybe I'll have a chance at a better record. Because I do think, the games in the National Football League are fickle. But most importantly, the point spreads on each one of these individual games make it so hard to wager on. But, if you talk about the state of New Jersey, the fact that the right or the ability to gamble is right there in front of your face. And you don't need large sums of money to be able to do it. You don't need to deal with a bookie like I did over the last series of years. Now, the bookie I was dealing with happened to be a really nice guy, but at the same time, I'd rather be doing something that's legal and easy to do. If for anybody that has dealt with a bookie that's a little tough on you and wants to make sure, hey, if you're losing money or if you owe him money, you better pay him right away. Listen, you go online as we hit the halfway point here on the Pass Ball Show. Once again, it's brought to you by JohnPielli.com, as well as St. Aloysius Church and School in Jackson, New Jersey. Comment on the Facebook feed or Periscope feed, 732-364-3598 if you're interested in calling into the show. But enough bitching about losing money when it comes to gambling. Speaking of losing money when it comes to gambling, here are the picks of this week. Pielli's picks for week number 5 in the National Football League. First game I'm going to hit up this week is a game that the line I think is pretty close. I think there's still, regardless of his play status, some concerns about Aaron Rodgers. And I do think he is not 100%. That's going to potentially hurt the Green Bay Packers as they're going forward. You need Aaron Rodgers, if you're going to win a Super Bowl, to be at his absolute best. Anytime there's a division game, whether it's the NFC North, whether it's the AFC North, whether it's the NFC East, there's a little more of a little fervor and gusto where these players play hard because they want to beat their rivals. And they know that these are the teams that they're going to need to get past if they want to get to the promised land. These are the teams that they're going to have to get past if they're looking to overtake them and win the division. If they want to get to the postseason, you got to beat your own division rivals. And it's very prevalent in the sport of football. So I look at Green Bay and Detroit, and I think Detroit's shown some moments. Their embarrassment in week number 1 against the New York Jets, I think, is long beside them. Any issues or worries that people may have over Matt Patricia as their head coach, at least temporarily, are put on the back burner because they've had some very good performances. They had a big win a couple weeks ago against New England. So, I do think it's a chance for the Lions to take a big step and beat a Green Bay Packer team. The line dictates that. And good morning, Pat. Hope everything's going well with you. You know, the Packers on the road are probably a little bit of a different team than they are at home. The advantage that they have with Lambeau Field, the performance they have with their defense last week stands out to me. And I don't know if it's the fact that they were playing such a bad team in Buffalo, or it was a kind of a little emergence. Sometimes you got cohesive units that happen on defense that end up coming together, and they end up becoming better defenses than these quote-unquote experts will think. So, am I believing in the Packers defense? Not as much, especially if Clay Matthews is the marked man that he seemed to be in the National Football League over the last series of weeks. So I do think there's a little bit of a fear that Clay Matthews is going to get hit for a flag every single time he tackles a quarterback. But the Packers are coming off of a good win against a bad team. I'm going to take that 1 point at the handicap that the Green Bay Packers have. So I'm going with Green Bay on the road, -1 at Detroit. So game number 2 is another interesting one for me, because I think of battles that we've seen between the AFC East and the AFC North this year. And I think you think of Cincinnati, you think of Baltimore, you think of New England, but you also got to think of Miami. Now, Miami's sitting here at 3-1 right now. Of course, the Patriots won on Thursday, so they're going to keep the pressure. If the Dolphins want to maintain a first-place lead, I know it's early on in the season to talk about who's in first and who's not, but the Dolphins would like to get that 4th win in 5 games. They're at Cincinnati, and Cincinnati is a very fickle team, because when they look very good, when they're playing their best football, they look like a playoff team. They look like a team that can probably cause some damage both offensively and defensively, throughout the course of the season and even in the postseason, even though they haven't won a postseason game in about 1 billion years. So Cincinnati at home, I'm thinking about Miami and their performance last week against New England. It was really the first time all season they didn't seem to belong on the same field as their opposition. They played the Jets, they played Tennessee. They won a couple games perhaps that the experts would have not expected them to win, but they went out there and they won it, and they were 3-0 facing the Patriots in Foxborough. It didn't work out, obviously. So they had their first loss. At some point that was going to happen. They're not the 72 Dolphins, the only team to go undefeated and win a Super Bowl. Of course, the New England Patriots a couple years back went 16-0, but lost in the Super Bowl. So I'm thinking Miami's going to have a bounce back. I think their defense is very underrated. I'm not believing in the Dolphins as far as being a legitimate playoff team or a team that's going to advance very far if they do get to the playoffs. But I think this is a game that they should be able to win. At Cincinnati, coming off of their first gut punch of the season, I think they got a very good chance. So, they're getting 6 points. So it helps me, the person betting, knowing that there's a little bit of a point spread involved. So I'm putting my money on Miami +6 at Cincinnati. Next game, I'll be real quick with it, Arizona, San Francisco. And one of the things that has frustrated me, some of the games that I've been picking, I'm trying to stay away from those same teams. Whether they're helping me or hurting me, it doesn't matter. I'm going to pick some different games, and Arizona, San Francisco really doesn't seem like an appealing game at all. The only thing appealing about it is Josh Rosen as the starting quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals. And I think him getting his 2nd start under his belt, playing a San Francisco team that has probably already conceded this season, knowing that Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to be playing for them, C.J. Beathard is going to give his best effort. But I'll tell you, it's going to be tough to expect him to engineer drive after drive. And the one thing that has sucked about the San Francisco 49ers is their weapons are considered good, but none of them are game-breaking type of players that can completely do it on their own. Marquise Goodwin needs somebody to get him the ball, somebody to lead him the ball, somebody to help make the plays for him. You look at their running back situation. They got guys that need help from the offensive line. They need a mixture of run and pass to be able to succeed. So I'm looking at the 49ers, and I feel bad that they lost Jimmy Garoppolo, because I think it would have been great to see what this team could do with Garoppolo as their quarterback all season. So I'm looking at Arizona, and I'm thinking this is going to be a big week for Josh Rosen. I think he's going to throw for a series of yards. He's going to be able to engineer some drives. And unlike the San Francisco 49ers, he's got weapons. He's got David Johnson. He's got Larry Fitzgerald. He's got a group of players that can make plays on their own and could perhaps help a young quarterback that's trying to, unify an offense. And I think this could be a coming out party for the Arizona Cardinals this week. And I'm getting 4 points. So I got Arizona +4 at San Francisco. The last Sunday game I'm going to pick is Baltimore and Cleveland. And I tell you, if you've watched the Cleveland Browns this year, and I know you look at their record and they sit here and they're 1-2-1, and it looks like the same old Browns. They're finding ways to lose. Looking like a team that's not in a position to win consistently. Well, they had a game that they tied that they should have won. They had a game last week against Oakland that you could dispute that maybe the officials cost the Cleveland Browns the game. They are at home this week. They are playing a Baltimore Ravens team that has a good defense, but at some point and a couple times this year, they've been exposed. And you look at their quarterback, Baker Mayfield, played pretty well last week, had something like 9 drops. If it wasn't for that, I think the Browns win the game. If it wasn't for the officiating, I think the Browns win the game. So you're looking at the Cleveland Browns, who have legitimately been in every single game that they've played this year, have a chance to play at home, and are playing a division rival. And to keep with the theme of the energy being built up for a division rival, the Cleveland Browns have been told for years that they don't belong in the same division as the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers. You saw the energy that they came out with when they played the Pittsburgh Steelers in week 1. They could have very easily won that game. I think they're going to win, and actually, if the spread was the other way, I would still take the Cleveland Browns. They're getting 3 points at home against Baltimore. To me, this is a pick that I believe in the most out of all my picks I made this week. Cleveland +3 at home against Baltimore. Next game I'm going to pick is a Monday night game, and I haven't picked a Monday night game this year, so hopefully, when things are going to shit in regards to your picks or anything that you're doing, you want to make some changes. And I'm making some changes by picking a Monday night game when I haven't done it all year. Washington +6.5 at New Orleans. And I'll tell you, if you're going to play the over, I think that would be a very good pick. And I haven't taken any over-unders yet. Maybe we'll start to get into that over the course of the next couple weeks. New Orleans is getting 6.5 at home. Their defense has not been good. I think offensively, Drew Brees and, you look at Kamara and Michael Thomas, they've been able to make plays. But I'm looking at Washington, and every single time the Washington Redskins get disregarded or forgotten about, they end up coming through. And every time you look at them and you say, hey, the NFC East is going to be Dallas and the Giants and the Eagles, Washington Redskins come out of nowhere and start winning some games. I think this is going to be a big performance that we're going to see in Washington. Alex Smith, the ability to not make mistakes. And Drew Brees, he probably won't make mistakes either. But the fact that New Orleans defense can be gunned on, and if this becomes a shootout, I don't know how much it works in the favor of the New Orleans Saints. And I don't care if they're home or not. So give me Washington +6.5 at New Orleans. Recap of the picks this week. They'll be up on johnpielli.com as soon as the show's over. You got Green Bay -1 at Detroit. Miami +6 at Cincinnati. Arizona +4 at San Francisco. You got Cleveland +3 at home against Baltimore, the only home team that I'm picking this week. And you got Washington +6.5 at New Orleans. So we'll see if where we end up. Kind of used a little bit of an alternative thought process when it came to it this week. So I'm hoping that my difference in thinking might produce some better results. A little recap of the show today. The relievers in baseball. I know it's the in thing, and I know the analytics keep saying, hey, go to a reliever, a guy throwing 95 to 100 miles an hour, fresh, coming right into the game. Listen, it might work for a while. It might get some teams past the division series. It might get a couple teams past the league championship series. But the more you overuse your bullpen, the more they're going to depreciate. And the more you use relievers, the better, or the advantage is going to continue to turn towards the hitter because they're getting a fresh look at a guy multiple times over the course of the season. Something that doesn't happen in a regular season. And by the way, when you're talking about these relievers that have these inflated numbers, these, ridiculous amount of, 15 to 18 strikeouts per 9 innings pitched, the ERA is way below 1. One of the reasons are because they're facing different hitters every single time they face their opposition. They may get into a series, 2 out of 3 series, but they're 2 out of 3 games, but they may be lucky enough to face a different series of batters each time. And then it's on to the next team where they're facing players that they have not faced before. So when you're in a 5-game series or a 7-game series, you have the same hitters that you're going to face game after game. And every time you do that, the advantage goes to the hitters. And for all these people that study these stats and are so analytically driven, how come this hasn't been brought up before? You got Ryan Blaney winning a NASCAR race last week because Jimmy Johnson and Martin Truex crashed into each other. Kind of reminds me of Cal Naughton Jr. winning in Talladega Nights with Ricky Bobby and Jean Gigard crashing into each other and then having their race by foot towards the finish line and then being disqualified, and Cal Naughton Jr. finally won. Finally, my NFL picks, they'll be up on johnpielli.com, so wait for that. So I hope everybody has a nice weekend. Maybe we'll be with you tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see how I feel. This is the Pass Ball Show brought to you by johnpielli.com, as well as St. Aloysius Church and School in Jackson, New Jersey. Hope everybody enjoys the football weekend. You obviously got the NHL season, which has just started, baseball playoffs, the whole thing. God bless you. And as always, I'll see you on the other side.